Hilchas Temurah yesh bechlolon sholish mitzvos. Achas mitzvos aseh u'shtayim mitzvos leisaseh. V'zeu proton. Aleph shli yomer behema bebehema. Beis shetia Temurah kedesh im hemer. And Gimel shli shana hakotshim migdusha l'gdusha. Bir mitzvos elu beprokim elu peirik rish. Kol ha-meimer leika al kol behema behema sheyomers. Now what's exactly the lashon of being meimer? The Rambam will say behem shel next peirik. But kol ha-meimer, someone that is meimer, is leika al kol behema behema sheyomer. In other words, if a person, for example, is meimer a number of behemoths for one behemoth, there's one behemoth of kachim, and he goes ahead and he says that these 5 behemoths should be Temurah of this kachim, so he's chayiv for each behemoth. Leika al kol behema behema sheyomer. Shenemer liach lifenu v'liyomer esei. V'afal pi sheliyasa maisa. Even though there's no maisa, it's only a dibur. Nevertheless, you get malchus for Temurah. Mipi hashmul lamdu. The general rule is that a mitzvah leisa shein b'maisa ein leiken olah. Chutz, there's 3 exceptions. Minishba, someone that was nishba l'sheker, umeimer, someone that made Temurah was meimir, and also mekal is chaveri b'shem. He's mekal is chaveri b'shem. Shleishim lav me'elu iyef sheshiyeh b'maisa klal. It's all b'dibur. There's no maisa. It's a shvua Temurah and mekal is chaveri b'shem. And nevertheless, v'leiken alei, and you get malchus. So the Rambam is saying over here that you get malchus for Temurah, even though it's a lav shein b'maisa. Nevertheless, there's a special mipi hashmul lamdu that there are 3 lav shein b'maisa which you get malchus, and one of them is Temurah. There's nishba lasheker. There's a meimer, and mekal is chaveri b'shem. Now the Rambam asks like another question. V'lama leiken al Temurah v'harei lav sheba nitik lasei. It sounds like Bepashtos that it's like there's another reason for Temurah not to get malchus, because Temurah is a lav sheyesh that's a nitik lasei. Shenamar v'imhamei murenu is v'hayu hu Temurasi yakedesh. So you have to act with the Temurah like kedesh. So l'chura that's an asay which is menatik the lav of lei mirenu. The Rambam is asking. So that the answer is no. Sheyesh ba eser shnei lav. There's 2 answers. First of all is because there's an eser and 2 lavim. Because the pasuk says leach lifenu v'lei yomer esei. So a lav anitik lasei when there's only 1 lav, so the eser takes away the 1 lav. But over here, since there's 2 lavim, so mele the eser is not menatik the 2 lavim. That's number 1. V'oid, and another teretz is she'ein lav sheba shava lasei. There's another rule that the halacha is that in order for to be a lav anitik lasei, it has to be the lav is deimer leser. And memela, it's not deimer. Why is it not deimer? Because the din is shahat sibur v'hashutfen einesin Temurah im himiru. In other words, if something is owned by shutfen or something is owned by the tzibur, so if someone goes ahead and makes Temurah with it, so there's no din that it has a din of Temurah. It doesn't have a din of Temurah. Va'aval pi shehem muzarin shel yamiru. Lepel a shutfim and a tzibur have an isser to make Temurah, even though the Temurah is not chal. So in other words, if there's 2 shutfim that own a behemoth, and then an owner kachim, and then they go and they say one of the shutfim says that a certain behemoth should be the Temurah of this kachim which he owns b'shutfis with someone else. So lepel he was over on the lav of lei mirenu, but on the other hand there's no essa if imhami yomer v'hayu Temurasi yakedesh, because that din doesn't apply to shutfim. So mele it comes out that the lav is for shutfim as well. The essa is not for shutfim. Mele it comes out, so that's ein halava esesham is nochamal. The Rambam starts off saying that if a person's meimer, he gets malchus. I lechur it's a lav shein b'maisa. So the answer is that mepi hashmul lamdu that there's 3 lav shein b'maisa you get malchus. Then the Rambam is asking another question that lechur it's a lav hanitik lasei. So on that the Rambam answers 2 tiruts, and one teretz is that it's 2 lavim and 1 essa, so there's no din of lav hanitik lasei. Another teretz is that a lav shavel essa, because the lav is also sai by a yochid and sai by a shutfim. Mashenkin the essa is only by a yochid. So nimtzas emes, what's the maskana? Shahayochid shehemer, a yochid that made Temurah is a Temurah kedesh. The Temurah becomes kedesh. Va'afila hemer b'Shabbos, even if you made Temurah b'Shabbos, so there would be a svara that there's magdish b'Shabbos. We learned already it becomes kedesh, but there would be a svara that since you're being memer b'Shabbos, so mele it's not chal the Temurah. So on that we're saying no. Va'afila hemer b'Shabbos, you made Temurah on Shabbos, the Temurah is chal. And v'lei karboim, you get vov. V'lei karboim, you get malchus for making the Temurah. So the Temurah is chal and the lei karboim. However, if there's something that's owned by shutfim, and one of the shutfim was heimer, there's a carbon at tzibur, and a person of the tzibur goes ahead and makes Temurah with a carbon of karbonas at tzibur, is hail v'yeshel mem shutfis, so memeli he has a shaychus. If you go ahead and you make Temurah with something that has no shaychus to you, so that's b'chlal not Temurah. If a person goes ahead and is maimer with someone else's carbon, so that's not Temurah. He doesn't get malchus, there's no kedusha, and he doesn't get malchus. So over here, since he does have a shaychus to karbonas at tzibur, hail v'yeshel mem shutfis, he's considered a shutf in the karbonas atzibur, so therefore Hariza Leike he gets malchus because Lepeli was being maimer with something which has a shaychus. But on the other end, since it's karbonas atzibur, is einat Temurah kedish. That's l'chura da halacha. Ma'is is on this halacha, this kashis, this kama kashis. There's one kashi is that we have a rule that even a lav she'en b'maisel, mashal lav which is dibur, but if through the dibur, the Gemara says it, that if the dibur makes a maisa, so then it's considered a lav she'esh b'maisel. So lepel, when a person is maimer, so since the behemoth is becoming kodesh, through the Temurah the behemoth is coming kodesh, so that's called that diburi nasa maisa. And since diburi nasa maisa, so the fact that it came through a dibur is not considered a lav shein b'maisa. So l'chura, what's the Rambam asking? The Rambam is asking, b'afal pisha liyasa maisa, l'chura he did a maisa because lepel through his Temurah became a maisa. That's one kasha. And then there's another kasha. The Rambam said, "Mepi Shmuel Lomdu that Temurah gets you get malchus even though it's a lav shein b'maisa." Then the Rambam asks another kasha. There's another reason that Temurah shouldn't get malchus. The Rambam already said there's a reason it shouldn't get malchus because it's a lav shein b'maisa. And Mepi Shmuel Lomdu gets malchus. So the pashtus Mepi Shmuel Lomdu also includes that you get malchus even though it's a lav nitik lasei. No, the Rambam explains why it's not a nitik lasei, and the Mipia Shmuel Lamdu is only about the prat that it's a lav shein b'maisa. So it's brought down. It's a mechudish dik pshat Rambam, but it's brought down. Devin Ozel says pshat azay, that the pshat is that be'emes taka a yochid goes ahead and makes Temurah. Someone from a yochid that owns a carbon, and he goes ahead and makes Temurah. So there's taka no shaila that's a lav shein b'maisa. It's befeiris a lav sheyesh b'maisa. Memela, that's not really the shaila where the Rambam asks v'aval pishul yosamaisa because he is yosamaisa. The Rambam starts off kol ha-meimer lekers. Kol ha-meimer vaisis is kel, also someone of shutfim. Kol ha-meimer leker. So on that the Rambam is asking v'aval pishul yosamaisa. The Rambam is asking only on a Temurah of a shutif. When the shutif goes ahead and makes Temurah, so he also gets malchus. So l'chura there's no maisa because lepel it wasn't chal and kedusha. So why does he get malchus? So on that the answer is Mepi Shmuel Lamdu that he gets malchus. So that din is only b'negei taka the shaila was aval b'shliyosa maisa was only when a shutiv was meimer, and the answer is that it's Mepi Shmuel Lamdu that there's three lavim that you get malchus even they lo yasamaisa. Now the Rambam is asking the next kasha v'lo malekin ala Temurah. Now he's asking on the yochid, a yochid that makes Temurah. So over there the din is that it's a lavanitik lasei. By a shutuf, it's not a lavanitik lasei. So on the first case where the Rambam asked, why does he get malchus in l'chura liyasa maisa, which was talking about shutuf, it's taken out a lavanitik lasei. But now the Rambam is asking, why does a yochid get malchus ala Temurah? L'chura over there, ein achinami, there was no chid, there was no mipi Shmuel Lamdu that you get malchus, because even though it's a lav shein b'maisa, it's not a lav shein b'maisa, so there was no mipi Shmuel Lamdu. But again, this din of yochid that makes Temurah, elamai, the l'chura gets malchus because it's a regular asamaisa. But l'chura there's another problem. The problem is that it's a lav anitik lasei. Why do you get malchus? And on that there's two tirutzim. One teretz is because it's a lav, it's two lav and one esa. And another teretz is that the lav and the esa are not shavah. I mean that's how the Even Ozel learns pshat. Not the Even Ozel, I'm sorry. The Beis Halevi learns pshat. The Beis Halevi learns pshat, and others learn pshat in this first halach in Rambam. The Maisa is, it's a davar mechudish. When you read the Rambam b'pashtus, the Rambam is speaking about kol ha-meimer. He's not speaking about dafka shutif. And on that he's saying v'afal pishul yosem maisa. So the Churi is asking a klolas de kakasha. And al derech zeh when the Rambam goes behemshel v'alilav sheba nitik lasei. No, the emphasis v'alilav shenitik bo lasei has to be taka only by the yochid. But I'll call upon him, and then the Rambam finishes off him tzas eimer. So the Churi it comes out that it was nischadish at the end that tzibur ein v'ashutfim ein eisen Temurah. It's not something we knew already in the beginning. According to this teretz of Pshat, we already know that a shutif is not making Temurah. And Memelo, as the kasha is, the lechura, so it's a lav shein b'mais. I'll call upon him. We have two shilas over there. One shaila is lechura it's a lav sheyesh b'mais. The second kasha is once it's mepia shmua. So what's the Ram asking about the din of a lav anitik lasei? And the teretz is this teretz of the Beis Halevi that he answers no. That the first issue of the Rambam is talking about a Temurah that shutfa made. And the second shtickle of the Rambam is talking about a Temurah where a Yochid made, where over there it's a lav anitik lasei. Halacha beis. Echad hameibir b'zodin, a shehemer b'shgoga, is a reza esa Temurah. Either way is esa Temurah, and also the leke he gets malchus. Now what does it mean b'shgoga? Ketzad hamischaven leimar hareza Temuras eila sheyeshli. He in his mind he wanted to say hareza Temuras eila sheyeshli. And lepeil va'amar hareza Temuras shlom sheyeshli. And he said hareza Temuras shlom sheyeshli. He didn't say what he wanted to say. So the din is harezu Temurah v'leke. It's Temurah and leke. The Rambam doesn't say a Temurah of what. The Rambam doesn't write a Temurah of what. Is the Maisa is if he only has an oila. That's the Marie Korka says. If he only has an oila, and he meant to say hareza Temuras eila, and lepeil he said hareza Temuras shlom. So then it's a Temuras eila. It's a chidush. That's what he says. It doesn't say clearly in Rambam. I mean, the pashas you would be able to learn that it's talking about he has an oil and a shlom. He meant to say Temuras eila, and he ended up saying Temuras shlom. So it's a Temurah of what he said and v'leika. But Marie Korka says not like that. Marie Korka says that Pshat is if he said hareza Temuras eila and lepeil, he wanted to say hareza Temuras eila, and lepeil he said hareza Temuras shlom. So it becomes Temuras eila if he only has an eila. If he only has a shlom, it becomes Temuras shlom. If he has an eila and a shlom, vice it's a suffix taka. Brought down as a suffix what it is, whether it's a Temurah, because he meant to say oila, and lepeil he said shlom. But Al Kopan the Rambam says hareza Temurah v'leika. Avol, that's that type of a shegig. So in other words, a shegig means he was a shegig and what actually came out of his mouth. He meant to do something which was wrong, and he was a shegig. Avol imdima shemuta lahamer vehemer. If a person thought that it's muta lahamer vehemer, Eisha Omar, or he said, ikonis labayizeh, I'm going into this house, v'omer midaiti, I'm going to think about being maimer. I'm going to have to think about being maimer. And v'nichnas, and he went in, and v'shochach, he forgot that he made up his mind that he's going to think about being maimer. And lepeil v'hemer shalei midaiti, he made Temurah without making this calculation, v'hemer shalei midaiti, without being v'omer midaiti. So then as hareza Temurah, it is Temurah, because since he was a shegig, so he's ein leikala. So notice when a person is maimer b'shegig, or a person is being maimer with the intent of being thinking about it, and lepeil somehow or another shachach, he forgot about his intent of thinking about it. And Memela says hareza Temurah because lepeil he made Temurah, but on the other end, ein leikala, he doesn't get malchus. Not 100. It's hard. I don't understand what's the tzir. First of all, lechura. In order to be chayiv malchus for Temurah, you have to be amazing. L'chura, you have to get asra. You have to have edim and asra. L'chura, to get malchus for anything, you have to have edim and asra. So what is exactly the tzir? He went ahead and made Temurah. So l'chura, before he made Temurah, they gave him edim and asra. So what does it mean? Dima shemuta lehamer vehemer. L'chura, b'chlal, you have to have edim and asra. And take the dibur yememer. And what is this? What's the tzir of ikonis labayis va'omer midaiti v'nichlus v'shachach? Were there Edom and Asra? Weren't there Edom and Asra while he was being Maimer? Was Kila Maimer maybe like Edom and Asra warned him, don't be Maimer, and he's saying, I'm going in and I'm thinking about being Maimer. I mean, was it taken the dibur of the Edom of the Asra? Don't have the tzir clearly. What's this tzir where he went to Konis Lebesi? And also, what happens if a person didn't say Omer Midait? He just went into the house and v'nichnas and Shachach, I don't know what he was shachach. He was shachach that he decided Hemer Midaiti. The Hemer Shle Midaiti is, so I'm not sure the tzir exactly. Is hareza Temurah ve'ein leikala. Halacha Gimel. Ein odam meimer behemtei bekarban she'ein shalei. Person can't go ahead and say that I have a behem of chulin and I want to be meimer my behem of chulin for someone else's behem of kachim. Aber v'im amar bal hakarban kol hareitzu lohamer bebehemtei yavi v'yamer bal behem gave reshus to make Temurah for whoever wants to give me Temurah. So then hareza meimer, but then he could make Temurah. Now that's talking about if the carbon is not his. Now, fakert heber korban noi bebehemer sheina shalei is also in the Temurah. Person can't be maimer his carbon for a behemoth that's not his. Sheina the makdish davar sheina shalei, just like you can't be makdish davar sheina shalei. So al derech zeh you can't be maimer with a behemoth sheina shalei. Halacha dalet. Hamiskaper hu sheisa Temurah. Who's considered the bal carbon? We just said before that in order to make Temurah, you have to be the bala carbon. Who is called the bala carbon? The bala carbon is called the miskaper, the person that's going to get the kapara through this carbon. Hamiskaper hu sheisa Temurah. Avolei hamagdish ketzad higdish behema she is kaper b'chavere. A person was magdish a behema in order for his chaver to have the kapara kigame. She higdish karbonis nozer. She is kaper ben plenia nozer. He was mafresh karbonis nozer that his plenia nozer should be niskaper. Is oiser hanozer hu sheisa ben Temurah. So that nozer which is being niskaper with these behemoths, he's considered the bala carbon, bala behemoths, and therefore he's the one that can make Temurah with these behemoths. Avolei zeh shehigdish, not the person that was magdish. He just was magdish it, but now it became the karbanis of this person that's miskaper. Halacha hey, hayoirish meimer, someone that yarshed the carbon from his father, whoever was meirishim, now it's his carbon, so really he could be meimer. Now he niach behema l'shnei bonav umes. He had two sons, and lepeil he had a carbon, and he was niach bonav l'shnei bonav. Is arezu krevi. You could go ahead and be makriv the carbon. He left the carbon. You could be makriv it. But you can't make Temurah with that carbon. Why? Shareheim b'shutfim. Because these two sons are considered shutfim in this behema. And v'ashutfim einesim Temurah k'meisha b'yarnu. And shutfim cannot make Temurah. Nor they're oivar and alav if they make Temurah. But on the other hand, the chaleis kedushas of Temurah is not chal. Ein kochi nochrim oisim Temurah min. So in other words, when a goy was magdish a behemoth, even though a goy could be magdish a behemoth, but nevertheless, that kochim of the nochrim could not make Temurah. In other words, the kedusha of a nochri doesn't have that level of kedusha which it could make Temurah. Aval medivri seifrim shanochri shehemer, as a goy was maimer with his behemoth, which is kedusha, is arezu Temurah. It is considered Temurah. Now higdish hanochri behemoth, she is kaper by Yisrael. The goy went ahead and he was magdish the behemoth, she is kaper by Yisrael. And then vehemer bo hanochri, and then the goy went ahead and he was maimer with that behemoth which he was magdish, she is kaper by Yisrael. Now obviously, since we're talking about it with she is kaper by Yisrael, so the nochri cannot be maimer unless it's b'shus Yisrael, like we learned before. We learned before Hamiskaper hu sheisa Temurah v'lei magdish. So mele for a nochri to go ahead and be maimer with a behemoth which was magdish for Yisrael would only be in the event that the Yid gave him permission. Is over here the din is a suffix Temurah. It's a suffix Temurah. Question: what's the suffix? So the Ma'aseh Minchas Chinuch explains. The Mishnah also says pshat hazeh. I mean, it's not so really clear in Rambam. You know, there's two dinim over here. There's a din of a goy making the Temurah, and the goy being magdish a behema, whether that behema could have Temurah. So the first din of Allah Vav ein kochim nochrim esim Temurah. The kochim of the nochrim cannot make Temurah. And that would be the mashal if a goy says anyone that wants can make Temurah, and then a year is going to go ahead and make Temurah with the kochi nochrim, so it's not Temurah because lepel it's kochi nochrim can't make Temurah. Now what about a goy making Temurah with kochi Yisrael? So they say it's not so clear in Rambam, but they say that l'chura that's pshat in Rambam that be'emes a goy could make Temurah with kochi Yisrael. Now since the din is that a person could say kol ha-meimer, whoever wants could be meimer, even though it's not his, that you have permission to be maimer. So a goy could be, if a yid was magdish a carbon, and then a goy goes ahead and wants to be maimer that carbon, and the yid gives him permission, so he could make Temurah. So that's not nichla le'in kochi Yisrael ism Temurah, because it's not kochi nochrim. It's not nichla le'in kochi nochrim ism Temurah, because it's kochi Yisrael. So a goy could make Temurah, but a goy could not. A goy's carbon cannot make Temurah. Now the question is, when a goy is magdish a carbon, let's say Yisrael. Since it was Magdish l'Seirach Yisrael, so maybe it has a din like a Yid's carbon, and since it's like a Yid's carbon, so Mamela it could make Temurah. If it could make Temurah, so then the Goy could also make Temurah. If it can't make Temurah, so then a Yid could also not make Temurah. So in this din, Higdash HaNachri Behemer She is Kaper Bo Yisrael, Vehemer Bo HaNachri Are is a suffix Temurah, it would be Hu Adin Vehemer Bo Yisrael. So why does the Ram write Vehemer Bo HaNachri? Not so clear. Not so clear. Maybe the Ram wants to say that even Heimer Bo HaNochri, there's a tzad that it's Temurah. I'll call upon the way they're learning Pshat. I'm saying the Mekar Samishna, Mechas Chinuch, They're learning pshat that this din, that the kedusha of a goy, the kedusha that a goy made, that kedusha can't cause that from that kedusha should become temurah. But a goy b'atzim as a person could go ahead, just like he could be magdish a carbon, could be magdish, could make temurah. And if he makes kedusha in a way that it should be l'tzerich Yisrael, so then there's a svara that kedusha could make temurah. Halacha zayin. Echad an noshim ve'echad noshim im himiru esim temurah. That din is side men and side women. Halacha ches. Cotton shehigia leinus nedarim shehemer that he made temurah is aval pi she'eni leiki. He certainly doesn't get malchus. But yesh b'safik im esim temurah eni esim temurah. There was a cotton which higia leinus nedarim. He could be magdish. He has an ability to be magdish. El v'mai. The Mai says, the Pasuk says, Le Yemirenu, Le Yachlifenu, Imhamer Yemirenu, V'hoyu Tmurah Yakedesh. So there's a svara to say that who could make Tmurah? Only someone, by him there's a lav of Le Yemirenu. Masha'inkin, a cotton, which by him there's no lav of Le Yachlifenu, Le Yamarese, so by him there's also no din of Imhamer Yemirenu, V'hoyu Tmurah Yakedesh. That's the two stadim of the Suffolk. There's a cotton normally can make Hegdish, and L'chura Tmurah is also a din Hegdish. But over here, since it's a davar mechudish that v'hayahu tmurasi yakedesh, so maybe there's a svara that maybe he doesn't get malchus, he can't make tmura because he's not nichlal in the lav of le yachlifenu v'leyamarese. Now there's a harder that l'chura a goy is also not nichlal, and the way we just said before, it comes out that a goy could make tmura. A goy could make tmura. The only problem is that a goy's carbon can't make tmura. So it's a shtickle harder. That what's the difference between a goy and a cotton legabi this prat, which there's the Achreinu try to answer it. The Ramora brings a teretz. Halacha tes. Ein hakoyenim mimirim b'chatus of Osham. So if a person has a chatus and Osham, so the balabayas of the chatus and Osham could make tmurah. I mean, there's a musik of a tmurah's chatus and tmurah's Osham. Now the tmurah's chatus is grada yomos, but that's besides the point. But lapel, there's a musik of making tmurah. Now, the chatas will be eaten by the kohenim. So the question is, could the kohen be maimer with this chatas? Obviously, he's being maimer with the chatas while the chatas is alive. So he says, "Eina kohenim mimirim b'chatas v'asham sha'ava b'shein shelahem anos." They will eventually get the basar of the chatas and the asham. Aber einon zeichem b'mechaim. It's not yet there. It's, once it's geshachten and there's zikas adam, so then the kohenim are zeichem in the basar. Masha'enken at this point in time. The Kohanim aren't considered shutfim in this chatas, and therefore they're not people that could go ahead and make tmurah with this chatas. She'ein lam bebasar ashi yizarek adam. They don't have any schus in the basar ashi yizarek adam. That's din number one. So the din is a kohen can't make tmurah with a chatas and osham. Then there's another din veina kohanim mimirim bebcher. Now you have a bcher. Now this bcher is lekohanim. Lepel the Yisrael owns a bcher, had a bcher. And that prayer he has to give to the Kohanim. So the Chura over here, the Kohanim were Zeichem Michayim. So the Chura, since the Kohanim are Zeichem Michayim while the behemoth is still alive, so the Chura, they should be able to make Temurah. So he says, no. Afal Pishu Zeichem Michayim, even though he was Zeichem in the prayer Michayim, and he already has the prayer. We're talking about, let's say, he already has this prayer. There's the Yisrael, the prayer was born by the Yisrael, and the Yisrael gave this prayer to the Kohen, and the Kohen is going to go ahead and bring it to the Beis HaMikdash to be makriv. But nevertheless, so the Kohen now it's his carbon. Nevertheless, he can't make Temurah with this carbon. Why? Because ein is zeichem bei metchila. So it's a new din that in order for you to make Temurah with your carbon, it has to be a carbon which lechatchila b'shas kedusha, when the kedusha was chal, it was your carbon. Masha'enken over here, when the kedusha was chal, it wasn't yet the Kohen's, it was bebeis Yisrael. So therefore, he can't make Temurah. It's a special din, like apostle, that you can't make Temurah from a carbon that the Kedushas HaKarbon wasn't chal while it was yours. Aval Pishu Zeichem B'Mechaim, it's not like an Osham and a Chatas who is B'chlal not Zeichem B'Mechaim, it's only Zeichem in the Basar. But over here, he's Yes Zeichem B'Mechaim, but Ein Zeichem B'Metchila. It's not when it was born. When there was the Chal the Kedusha, Shari Tchilasi B'Beis Yisrael. The Tchilasi of the Kedusha was B'Beis Yisrael, so therefore, even when it's transferred to the Kohen can't make Temurah with this B'cher. Aval HaBailim, even though the Bailam have to give away this B'cher to a Kohen, but the Bailam, while the B'cher is still B'Beis HaBailam, and he didn't give it away, is called Zman Shu B'Beisam, while the B'cher is still B'Beis HaBailam, is Esan Temurah. And the Kohen Shehimer B'B'cher Shnei Ledlei is Lei B'B'cher Shlokach M'Yisrael, it's an Esan Temurah, Pashut. that L'chura Kohen is not worse than Yisrael, Madach Yisrael, which has to give it away. So the din is that B'cher he could be make Temurah with. Is the Kohen which keeps the B'cher, so Avada, he keeps the Temurah. He's able to make Temurah with the B'cher that he's going to keep. Halacha Yud. The Kohen Gadol would bring an aisle, he would bring an aisle lo'ila, and he would also bring a par lechatas, and he would bring it from his own money. So l'churi would be a carbon yachid. But nevertheless, is lazeh. Eila shel Kohen Gadol esit Temurah. The aisle of the Kohen Gadol, which is an oila, he could go and he makes Temurah with that aisle. Avol parei, but his par, the par of the Kohen Gadol that he brings on Yom Kippur, the par that he brings on Yom Kippur, eina esit Temurah. He can't make Temurah with that par. Avol pishu mishalei, even though he pays for it, it's not a neilas tzibur. It's not a chatas hatzibur. It's something which he pays for. When he says vidu, he says vidu also for echav hakenim on the par is arei heim bekeshutfim, and therefore they have a din of shutfim. And therefore we taka learned the mashal if a Kohen Gadol dies, so Lepel, the second Kohen Gadol, could go and use the par of the first Kohen Gadol. I lechura, since he died, so it has a din of a chata shemesu bala. The answer is no, because since Lepel, the par was designated that it should be for the kapara of all the kenim, so it's kilu considered the shutfim of all the kenim. That was the din benegeh chata shemesu bala. Now that is it. We're saying it benegeh the din of Temurah, that the Kohen Gadol can't go ahead and make Temurah with this par because this par is considered a par ashutfim. Halacha Yudalef. Ha'oifes v'hamenoches ein oisim Temurah. The whole din is behema bebehema. The pasuk says clearly that Muhammad Imrana, so the behema bebehema is Temurah. Masha'inkin oifes and menachas, there's no musik of Temurah. Halacha Yud Beis. Korbanis bedek kabayis ein eisen Temurah. Whereas behemoths that you will magdish to beg the kabayis cannot be made as Temurah. Shenamar b'maiser liyevaker bin tevel rav le'imirana. So remember, there's two psukim. There's a pasuk earlier in Parsha Chav Zayin when the pasuk Tes, pasuk Yud, the pasuk says over there, "Behema sheyakrivu mimenu korban l'Hashem," so kol shayitim mimenu l'Hashem yakedesh, and then the pasuk says liyachlifanu v'liyamar esei teburai rabatev. The whole pasuk v'mhamer yamar behema b'vehema v'hayehu tmurasi yakedesh. So here we see clearly that the whole din of Temurah is only behema b'vehema, not b'negei efes and menachas. That's the pasuk in Kapitel Chav Zayin, pasuk Tes and Yud. Then at the end of Kapitel Chav Zayin, mamish at the end of Parshas Vayikra, by Mafter already, over there it says, "Chol ma'aser bakav atzein, kol asheyav etachas hashevet, shavet hasidi yakedesh l'Hashem." And then again the pasuk says, "Liyevaker bin tevel ra v'lei yimirenu, v'mhamer yimirenu v'hayu tmurasa yakedesh." So the question is, once we already had the Parsha of Temurah before, which includes all korbanos, so why do we need a special pasuk to teach us that Meiser you shouldn't make Temurah? That's what the Rambam is saying here. V'alei, let's start again. Halacha Yud Beis. Korbanos bedek habayis ein eisen eset Temurah. You can't make Temurah from korbanos that were nigdash lebedek habayis. Shnemer b'Meiser liyevaker bin tevel rav v'lei mirenu. V'alei Meiser b'klal kol ha'kochim oya. Already it was b'klal kol ha'kochim. In other words, we have already the parsha of Temurah by all kochim. Is v'lama yotza, why do we have a special parsha by Meiser? L'lamed ala klal. This is coming to teach us on the general klal that ma Meiser korban yochid. Meiser has to be only a korban yochid. Is yotzu korbanos tziva v'chein hashutfim, because there can be a Meiser which is from shutfim. Like we learned, in other words, when shutfim are mishtatif in a behema, so then there's no chiv Meiser. Meiser is only a chiv if you own the behema on your own, not if you go ahead and you're mishtatif with a shutf. Ma meiser korban mizbeach. A meiser is a korban mizbeach. It's kedusha mizbeach. You makriv it al gabe mizbeach is yotzu kodesh beit hakabayis. So something that was kodesh b'kedusha beit hakabayis also there's no din of Temurah. And ma meiser behema hukish meiser dogen, which means shein chayavim be'elo yisrael v'lei nachrim. There's no musik of meiser dogen by goy. Is memeli yotzu korbanos nachrim. So b'negei also we're learning that korbanos nachrim she'ein eisen Temurah. From korbanos nachrim you can't make Temurah k'mesha b'yana. So we have three limudim that we learn out from the fact that the Torah tells us again the parsha of Temurah by Meiser. We learn out that it has to be a korban yochid. We learn out that it has to be kochi mizbeach, and we learn out that it has to be kochi Yisrael, not kochi nochri, because Meiser is hukesh le Meiser dogan. Meiser behem is hukesh le Meiser dogan, and Meiser dogan is only from a Yisrael. Now the Meiser, the Ram writes Bepshitos that Meiser cannot be by Shutfim. The Be'emes, there's two dinim over there. There's people, two people became Shutfim. And one had 50 vladis, and the other one had 50 vladis. And they were mishtativ, and now they both own together the 100. So each one Kilu became like an owner of the other person's 50, and the other person also became an owner. So then it's taka, there's no Chi of Meiser. Because just like there's no Chi of Meiser on a Lakuach, there's no Chi of Meiser if they became Shutfim. Masha'inkin, if two people own behemoths together, and then those behemoths have behemoths, so then there is a Chi of Meiser. There's no Chi of Meiser by Shutfim. Like you can have Shutfim that are Mechuyev b'Meiser. Over here we're like saying a rule that even something that was born by Shutfim, whereas L'chur is something that was born by Shutfim, or something that was discarded by Shutfim, also there's no din Temurah. The question is, by Meiser there's no real din that there's no Nchakis Meiser by Shutfim. Over there the Pshat is when Shutfim were Mishtativ, so the status of the Shutfim has a din of a L'kuach, and therefore we learn out that there's no din Meiser. And over here we're making a general din that Shutfim, two Shutfim that own Temurah, even though that behemoth was born by them, and so that kosher was born by them, nevertheless, just like Shutfim can't be mafresh meiser, so Shutfim can't go ahead and make Temurah from a carbon that was born by them, L'chura was born by them b'Shutfis. That's a diun. So there's they bring from the Rital Gazi that he says that there's another pasuk that says le'achlifenu, where over there we learn now that it has to be dafka yochid, not a shutfis. But on the other hand, if it would be just that pasuk, then we would say al derech like meiser, that if you became the shtativ, then you can't make Temurah. Masha'inkin, if it was born by you, so then you could make Temurah, and therefore we have two psukim. Al kol panim, the din is clear that if two shutfim own a behema, and then they're magdish the behema is hegdish, so neither of them could go ahead and make Temurah, and that we learn now from Meiser, that by Meiser there's no musig of Meiser from Shutfim. Again, this was saying the din is a little bit different, because Be'etzim you could be mafresh Meiser if Lepeil, if it was born Eitzel HaShutf. Halacha Yud Gimel. HaMagdish Balas Mum Kavua. He was L'chatchila Magdish Balas Mum Kavua, so Memele was never Chal Kedushas HaGuf, is Eina Eisa Temurah. So that Behema, which never was Chal Kedushas HaGuf, is Eina Eisa Temurah. Mipnei Shol Niskadish Gufa Kiddush Gomer. And Memele Eina Le Kedushas Dam, and you can't make Temurah from Kedushas Dam. Aval HaMagdish Balas Mum Ever. So L'chatchila Be'emes was Chal Kedushas HaGuf, or Shehigdish Tmima, V'achar Kach Neled Lamum Kavua. So then it's a Temurah. Then it could make a Temurah. So even though it has a mum, or even has a mum aver, nevertheless it could make a Temurah because Lepel was Kodesh Kedus Saguf. Now, halacha yudal, echad ameimer tomim b'balmum. In other words, you have a behemoth which is a balmum, but it has on it Kedus Saguf. And now you're going ahead and taking another behemoth of chulin, which is a tomim, and you be magdish it b'balmum, a balmum b'tomim. Or you go ahead and you have a behemoth which is Kodesh Kedusha Zaguf, which is a Tom, and you're going ahead and making Temurah on a Balmum, a Shehemer Boker B'tzein, it's saying B'boker, Ekvasim B'izim B'kvasim, and the Kevis B'scharim in the Kevis, a Shehemer Echad B'meya. You went ahead and said that this carbon should be a Temurah for all the 100 Karbanis, a Meya B'echad, that you took 100 behemoths of Chulim, and you said they should be a Temurah for the one carbon, Bein B'Basachas, Bein B'B'zuach Arzu, is that is a Temurah. And V'leika Kiminyan HaBehemoth Shehemer. Now this did that you leika Kiminyan HaBehemoth Shehemer is only by Meir B'echad. If you said Echad B'Meir, so once you went ahead and you said this should be Temurah of one, so Memela the second time it's already a Behemoth Kedusha. So obviously you can't go ahead and be Meimer. There's no musik of being Meimer. The Behemoth is already Temurah. So Memela the musik, when you Chatchila said that you're being Meimer Echad B'Meir, so that you could be Chal. You're saying you're being Meimer this Echad for these Meir behemoths which are Kaddish. Then there's another musik that you're saying these behemoths which are Chulin should be you're being Meimer for this Echad. And then, in such a situation, you get Malkas, Kiminyan HaBehemoths, only again by Meir B'echad, and only there could be a musik of Bezuach Arzu. By Echad, B'Meir, there's no musik of getting Malkas for each one, and also there's no musik of getting, of having Bezuach Arzu. Halacha Tezvov. Eina Temurah, Eisa Temurah, V'lei Vlad Behemoth HaHegdish Eisa Temurah. In other words, the original behemoth that we were Magdish, that could make Temurah. Masha'enkin, if you go ahead and make Temurah for the original Behema, and now you want from the Temurah to make again Temurah, so the Temurah can't go Temurah. And the Kedushas HaTemurah can be transferred to the next Temurah. And Aldera is the Vlad of the Hegdish, so the Hegdish can make Temurah, but the Vlad of the Hegdish has the din of Hegdish, because it's a Vlad of a Hegdish, but on the other hand, the Vlad of the Hegdish can't go ahead and make Temurah. Eina Temurah Eisa Temurah, V'lei Vlad Behemis HaHegdish Eisa Temurah, Shneimar, V'hoya Hu Utmurasi. So we learn out Hu, V'lei Vladei, and Utmurah say, V'lei Tmuras Temurah. The Temurah can't be the Tmuras Temurah. Aval HaMeimer Bebehemoth. That's only talking about you can't go ahead and make a Temurah from the Temurah. Aval HaMeimer Bebehemoth. Someone has a Behemoth of Hegdish and he went ahead and made Temurah. And then V'chazer V'hemer, and then he goes and makes again Temurah. And V'chazer V'hemer, Afilo Elev is Kulon Temurah. That's what we learned before. That when he says Meya Be'echad, even Ben B'Vasachas, Ben B'Zachar Zeh, so he gets Malchus for each one. They're all Temurah. V'leik al Kol Echad Ve'echad, K'mesha B'Yanu. That's what we learned in Halacha Yudalit. Halacha Tezai. Ein Memirin, a Vorim, a Ubrim B'Shleim. V'lei Shleimim Behem. If you want to make Meimer, you have to be Meimer a Behema Shleima. A Behema Shleima for a Behema Shleima. You can't be Meimer a Vorim, a Ubrim B'Shleimim. Ketzad. Ha'emer Raglish a Behema Zu. A Yoda should be Tachas Eila. A Sha'amar Uber Behema Zer should be Tachas Eila Zu. Says Ein Temurah. So a person goes ahead and says either Raglish Behema Zu, which a Behema of Chulin, should be Tachas Eila Zu, or the Ubra of Behema Zu, of a Behema of Chulin, should be Tachas Eila Zu, Ein Temurah. V'chein ha'emer Behema Zu, it goes ahead and it says the Behema of Chulin should be Tachas Yoda Ragla Shel Eila Zu, Ishamer Behema Zu, Tachas Ubra Shel Chata Zu, is Ein Temurah. So in other words, you have to have a Temurah Behema B'Behema, the Pasuk said. It has to be a Behema Shlema for a Behema Shlema. Not a Uber and an Aver for a Behema Shlema, and not an Aver, not for a Behema Shlema, and not a Behema Shlema for a Uber or a Aver from a Behema of Kachim. Halacha Yud Zayin. Hamemer Bikilayim, a Betreifa, V'yetzedefen, a Betuntum Vandregenes, Ein HaGdusha Cholale. If a person goes over to a Behema, no, the Behema of Chulin is Kilayim. Now Kilayim is not royal Kachim. And a treifa is also not roy to be kachim, to be korav al gabi hamizbeach. And v'yetzidefen is also not roy to be korav al gabi hamizbeach. And oy betumtum vadregnis, and a tumtum vadregnis is also not roy to korav al hamizbeach. All these behemoths are not royally korav al gabi hamizbeach. So the din is ein hagdusha chol alei. So if a person goes ahead and says, we're talking about the behemoth of chulin, is either kilayim or a treifa or yetzidefen or a tumtum vadregnis, is ein hagdusha chol alei. Varezik mishahemer begomel bechamer. Person goes ahead and says that this gomel and chamer should be Temurah of this kachim. Lefi she'ein b'minam carbon, because over there is ein b'minam carbon. So al derech zeh, just like a gomel chamer is the ein b'minam carbon. Al derech zeh, these are not together being a carbon. Well, lefichach ein alekas, you don't get malchus either. In other words, you get malchus for going ahead and saying Temurah, even if it's not chal, l'mashal by shutfim. But the pale, there was a musik of Temurah. The pale is not chal because shutfim is not chal, or tzibur is not chal. But over here, it's not b'chal the musik of Temurah. Al derech, a person makes Temurah with something which is not his. So again, it's not together of Temurah. Ma ben elo lebalmum. So the Rambam is asking l'chura. We learned before that even if you are member with a balmum, you also like. But l'chura, balmum is also not right to be a carbon. It says ma ben elo lebalmum. Balmum yesh b'minam carbon. A balmum is together being a carbon. In other words, a balmum, l'peil is a mum, it has a chsarn that it's a mum. Masha'in came, elu ein b'minam carbon. It's b'chlal not together a carbon. In other words, balmum is the pshat, it's the same behema, it just has a blemish, it has a problem. In other words, it's not pshat, it's the behema, but it has a problem. Masha'in came, all these others that are kilayim and treifa, even though treifa l'chur also, we're saying treifa since it's not a pshat, it has a problem. It's mechatchila not together being a kedushas carbon, to tumtum and dregnas. So mela, so therefore it's not chal the kedusha of Temurah. Halacha yudches hariveh v'hanirva, which also are apostle in mizbeach, but he'areim kibalmum, because they are be'emes, they're regular be'emes. So there's a problem. The problem is there was a reveh and a nirva, so they're apostle with karbonis. Just like a balmum is apostle, so reveh and nirva is also apostle. So therefore, hareim kibalmum and ve'esim Temurah, they could make Temurah. V'chein kol ki yitzabah. The Lashon Rambam is that ve'oisim Temurah. So it means we're talking about a reveh and a nirva, which are kachim. So the Reveh and Nirva that's Kotchim are Oisen Temurah. But Huadin, they bring that Huadin the other way. That if it's a Reveh and Nirva, which is Chulin, so just like if the Chulin is a Balmum, so it could become Tmuras, Al Derech Zeh, Behema of Chulin, which was a Reveh and a Nirva, could become Temurah. Halacha Yutes. Behema Shechetz Yokedesh Vechetz Yochel. So you have a behema that belonged to two shutfim, and one of the shutfim was Magdish, his half. Behema Shechetz Yokedesh Vechetz Yochel. Lay Asa Temurah, it cannot make Temurah, and also V'lei Nasis Temurah. So behema, which is Chetz Yokedesh Vechetz Yochel, so the person, let's say, that owns the Chetz Yochel is saying, I have a behema of Kodesh, and I want my Chetz Yochel to be Temurah of that behema of Kodesh. So it's Lei Nasis Temurah. It's Lei Nasis Temurah, because it's not a complete behema. The Medayik over here, the Lechura, what happens if a person is not Chetz Yokedesh Vechetz Yochel? A person goes ahead and says, I want half of my behema to be Temurah for this behema. So since half of a behema is the Kelul also an Ever Shaneshama Kluyabeh, because then you can't have a behema that's alive, that's only Chetzia. So therefore it comes out, it's Kelul, you're speaking about the whole behema. And since it's speaking about the whole behema, so Taka does become Temurah. So in other, this is the Rambam brings from the Griz. In other words, if the Mashal person would have a behema of Kachim, and then he would have a behema of Chulin, and he says, I want half of my behema of Chulin to be Temurah of my behema of Kachim. So since half of the behema of Chulin is also Kelul, Eivish and Neshamat Liyabeh, because the half is the Negat Neshamat Liyabeh, so therefore, so the entire behema is Pashta Kedusha Bekula, and the entire behema becomes Temurah. If he owns the whole behema. But if, let's say, that behema is Chetz Yokedesh V'Chetz Yochel, so be'em is the Chetz Yochel, he can't be mispashit because the other part is the Kedesh, so the Temurah can be Chal on the other half, so therefore Taka it's not Temurah. So notice only by behema Chetz Yokedesh V'Chetz Yochel, so the din is Le'esa Temurah, that's the number one. But also the Linasis Temurah is only Linasis Temurah because it's Chetz Yokedesh V'Chetz Yochel. But if it wouldn't be Chetz Yokedesh V'Chetz Yochel, and you would want to try to be Magdish, half of it as Temurah, so Taka Yebichal. Halacha Chaf. Kol hachatoy shedinim sheyamusu is einon eisen Temurah. V'chol chata shedina shetira sheipol b'mum v'timacher is then is eisen Temurah. Now there's a chatos which dina chatos the chatois hamesis which we learned earlier in Psulam Mikdashim. So the chatois hamesis, so those chatos mesu balel or miskaper balel, those dinim, so then they can't make Temurah. It's not oimed lakrova b'chlal. It's not begeder lakrova. Halacha Chaf Aleph. Hamafrish nekeva lepischei, eila ilose eila shami. So b'meila so lepel, this behema can't be brought as a Pesach. Pesach has to be a zocher, and an oil also has to be a zocher, and an oshim also has to be a zocher. So the din is that yira achipul b'mum, and then that money you're going to buy a carbon Pesach or carbon oil or carbon oshim. Is afal pisha einam ruyin likarev. Lepel this behema is einam ruyin likarev. A behail v'yardo l'kedushas dam. Lepel there's a din of kedushas dam v'areim tmimim. And they're dochtomim. It knows there's a mitzias when you have a balmum. That's mechatchila balmum. It became kedushas damim, so it never really became kedushas aguf. It knows it was only kedushas damim. But over here, this nekeva lepische, even though lepel, you're going to go ahead. You were mafresh it lekarban pesach, but lepel you're going to have to use this money which you're going to have to be yirachipel b'mum because it's not right for this carbon. But lepel hail v'yardu l'kedushas dam. So it's kedushas damim knows. It's Kedushas Dam that these Damim are destined for this carbon, and Vareim Tmimim and they're Tmimim, they're not Bali Mumim. So therefore, is Yardul Kedushas Aguf. They have a certain din of Kedushas Aguf as well, and since they have a certain din of Kedushas Aguf, so therefore they're able to make Temurah. As we learned before, that only something that has Kedushas Aguf, even if it's a Balmum, can make Temurah. Now, L'chura, something that became a Balmum was a Balmum before the Kedusha was Chal. So then it doesn't have Kedushas Aguf, and it can't make Temurah. But over here, it wasn't a Balmum. The problem was only that it was hufresh for the wrong carbon. And those, a Pesach can't be in a cave, an oil can't be in a cave, Oshim can't be in a cave. So it's not about Hail v'yardul Kedushas Dam, v'areim tmimim. So therefore, yardul Kedushas Aguf, they have a certain din of Kedushas Aguf, and therefore they could make Temurah. Aval mafresh sor lechatase. This is the same type of case. He was mafresh a sor lechatase. He has to bring a seira. He has to bring a seir and he brings a sor. He was mafresh a sor. Or v'nosi shehifresh seira lechatos. He's supposed to bring a sor lechatos. And lepel he was mafresh a seira. Or v'kein gadol shehifresh para lechatos. He's supposed to bring a par kein gadol. And he brought a para. is Einon Eisen Temurah. Over there ain't Eisen Temurah. Why? Shebikola Mishana B'chatois is Leiniskacha Klal B'afilu Kedushas Dam. In other words, when a person goes ahead and uses Mafresh Nekeva Lepischa, it definitely has Kedushas Dam. So in other words, he has to go ahead and wait, Yirat Sheipul B'mum, and the Dam he's going to use to buy with it a Pesach. And the Lepel, since it's right now still a Tomim, and it was Yardul Kedushas Damim, so it's Yardul Kedushas Aguf. Mashenkin over there was B'chlam not Yardul Kedushas Damim, because Kol HaMishana is Kol HaMishana B'chatois, we learned, Kol HaMishana B'chatois, so when there's Mishana knows he's mafresh, the wrong behemoth for a chatas is Lenis Kacha Klal, B'afilu Kedushas Damim. So obviously, so if it's not even Kedushas Dam, there's nothing to talk about that. There shouldn't be, you can't make Temurah, it's not Kodesh at all.